Newton's first law of motion states, an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted upon by a force. This applies to the game of tennis because once a player hits the tennis ball, it stays in a straight line unless another force causes it to change direction. The force that acts upon the ball is gravity. Gravity is pulling the ball towards the ground with the force of 9.8 meters per second squared. That is what causes the ball to drop. The ball bounces back up because the vertical force of the ball is greater than the force of gravity. The second force that acts upon the ball is the opponent's tennis racket. The player swings his racket with a speed of 75 meters per second against the ball. This causes the ball to stop for an instant at the point of impact and then continue with the speed of 75 meters per second in the opposite direction. Chris will now explain how Newton's second law of motion applies to the game of tennis.
Thanks, John. I will now talk about Newton's second law of motion. It states that the acceleration of an object is directly proportional to the unbalanced force acting on it and inversely proportional to the object's mass. When you hit the tennis ball with the racket, you exert a force on it. Force equals mass times acceleration. Acceleration isn't the same thing as speed, rather it's the rate at which something is speeding up. Let's find the force exerted on a tennis ball when you serve. Tennis ball has a mass of about 0.056 kilograms. Let's say I serve like Pete Sampras, whose first serve 1/10 of a second after he hits it reaches 130 miles per hour, or 58.1 meters per second. That's a rate of acceleration of 581 meters per second squared. Multiply 0.056 kilograms by 581 meters per second squared, and you get 32.54. This shows that you hit the ball with 32.54 kilograms meters per second squared of force, or 32.54 newtons. That's one great tennis serve. Now over to Ryan, who will explain how Newton's third law relates to the game of tennis.
Thanks, Chris. I will now talk about Newton's third law, which states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. As the player hits the tennis ball, the ball is sent in the direction in which the player swung the tennis racket. The player pushes off of the floor during his serve to increase the distance the ball goes, due to the force applied to the ball increasing. As the ball hits the racket pushes back onto the ball, thereby sending it flying due to the unbalanced forces present.